My name is Evelyn Grace Dawson, and I'm 68 years old. I live in a modest home just outside Nashville, Tennessee, where the summers are hot, the neighbors are nosy, and the walls carry more memories than most hearts can bear. I was once a nurse. I gave 35 years to a hospital that forgot my name the day I retired. But that's not the story I'm here to tell. This is about the people who were supposed to love me. My family. I was a widow by 52. My husband Calvin passed from pancreatic cancer. We were married for 31 years. He was my anchor, my protector, my buffer between me and the harsh words of the world, especially from our daughter, Jenna. She changed when Calvin died, or maybe she always had it in her and just stopped hiding it. Either way, when he was gone, the coldness came fast. Jenna is 43 now. She married well. At least that's what she tells everyone. Her husband Todd is a corporate finance guy in Charlotte, with a Rolex he never takes off and a grin you wouldn't trust around your wallet. Together, they have 2 kids, Savannah, who just turned 21, and Liam, who's 16 and already pretending I don't exist. Last Thanksgiving, they invited me to dinner. I say invited, but really it felt more like an obligation on their part. Jenna had texted, "Dinner's at 5. Don't bring anything. We already have enough." I baked a pie anyway, my mother's recipe. Pecan with a touch of bourbon in the filling. When I got there, Savannah opened the door. She looked up from her phone just long enough to let out a bored, "Oh, you're here," before turning her back and walking away. Dinner was tense. Todd talked stocks. Jenna talked over everyone. Liam was on his phone. No one asked about me, how I was holding up, what I'd been doing. When I tried to speak, someone would sigh, or worse, interrupt. I was pouring myself a little sweet tea when it happened. Jenna was fussing about Savannah's college choices, something about internships in California. I said gently, "I remember when you wanted to study nursing. You used to practice bandaging your dolls." Savannah rolled her eyes and muttered, "Ugh, why are you even still alive?" I froze. No one stopped her. No one gasped. No one said, "That's enough." They all just carried on. I looked at Jenna. She didn't even flinch. Todd was already back to discussing hedge funds. Savannah scrolled TikTok. And me? I stood there, holding a glass of sweet tea in one hand and a silence so heavy it could have cracked the floor beneath me. That night, I drove back home with that sentence bouncing around in my head like a cruel wind. Why are you still alive? I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too stunned. I kept thinking, had I truly become nothing to them? Had all the birthday cakes, babysitting nights, emergency pickups from school, tearful teenage breakdowns, and quiet sacrifices meant nothing? And then came the quiet decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't beg them to see me. I'd just leave and take their future with me. Because what they didn't know was this: the house they lived in, the tuition Savannah boasted about, the summer home Todd planned to retire in, they were mine. All of them. The silence after that dinner didn't feel like peace. It felt like preparation. I didn't answer any texts for a while. Not that they were blowing up my phone anyway. Jenna sent a casual, "You got home okay?" message the next morning, like nothing had happened. I didn't reply. Todd didn't check in. Savannah posted party photos on Instagram the same night she told me I shouldn't be alive. And Liam, he probably didn't even notice I'd left. I stood in my kitchen that next morning, staring at the old corkboard near the fridge. It had faded grocery receipts, a takeout menu from a diner I loved, and a key, a spare to Jenna's house. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it down. I've always believed that you don't fight disrespect with louder noise. You respond with quiet consequences. So I began writing lists, everything they depended on me for, everything they didn't know they were standing on. They thought I was just Grandma Evelyn, retired, harmless, fading. But I wasn't fading. I was just waiting. 10 years ago, I sold the land Calvin's father left us. A development company turned it into a mall in Brentwood. The sale was good, real good, and I never told anyone, not Jenna, not Todd. I invested it in property, then in stocks, then in a rental business with a man named Craig I met at a senior entrepreneurship workshop. By 60, I was a millionaire. Quietly, legally, fully. The deed to Jenna's home? Mine. I bought it outright 4 years ago when they refinanced. She cried about the interest rates, so I helped. Helped them into my ownership. Savannah's tuition fund? Also mine. It wasn't a trust. It was a custodial account I managed for her. Her name was on it, but I was the custodian. No legal obligation to release funds once she turned 21 unless I approved it. Something they clearly forgot. Todd's dream cabin up near Asheville? A joint purchase. I held 51%. He was just the face that handled maintenance and photos for Instagram. They wanted me invisible, and I'd been that for years. But what they didn't realize is that invisibility comes with freedom, with power. They wanted to erase me from the family portrait? Fine. But first, I'd erase the comfort they were leaning on. I started with Savannah. Quietly, I called the bank and had the tuition payments paused. I didn't cancel it. Not yet. Just enough to send up a little smoke. 3 days later, Jenna called. Mom, something's wrong with Savannah's school account. They said a tuition payment bounced? I kept my voice light. That's strange. She paused. Isn't that your account? I smiled into the phone. It was. I'm reviewing some things. Silence. Then, tight-lipped. Well, you could have told us. I said, you could have stopped your daughter from telling me to die. Click. That was the first fracture. Next came the house. I contacted my attorney, Susan, a sharp woman with a sharper mind. She'd helped me draft a quiet exit strategy years ago in case Jenna ever turned on me. We reviewed the deed, the ownership agreement, and set the wheels in motion. I didn't evict them. No. I simply transferred the property into a blind trust under my name. They'd still live there for now, but they'd be receiving a new rental agreement. Market rate. No family discount. Todd got the email first, called me immediately. Evelyn, what the hell is this? Paperwork, I said. Read it carefully. You're charging us rent? You're welcome to leave. He stammered, cursed, hung up. I sat on my porch afterward sipping sweet tea, the same glass I held the night they said those words. It didn't taste bitter anymore. That week, Jenna tried to guilt me. She showed up at my doorstep unannounced, stood there with her arms folded and a fake smile. Really, Mom? Is this about Thanksgiving? No, I said. It's about the decade before that. She had no response. I let her stand there. And I didn't invite her in, because when someone shows you they don't care if you live or die, you stop handing them the keys to your life. And little by little, I was taking everything back. 3 weeks. That's all it took. 3 quiet, precise weeks to start shaking the foundation of everything they stood on. And the beauty of it? I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't scream. I didn't explain myself. I just moved, strategically, deliberately, and without remorse. I started with the Asheville cabin. Todd had always bragged about it like it was his personal retreat. My escape from stress, he'd say. Funny, since it was my investment money that bought it. His name was listed on the Airbnb rental page, but the operating agreement said otherwise. Craig, my business partner and friend, helped me contact the local manager overseeing the cabin's short-term rental bookings. I instructed them to delist the property, cancel all upcoming reservations, and prepare it for sale. Quietly, cleanly. Within a week, Todd noticed. Evelyn, he barked over the phone. Why is the cabin off the site? Our income is down. It's not yours, I said, and I no longer wish to rent it. You can't do that. Oh, I can. And I have. He sputtered something about legal rights and equity, forgetting that I'd had a team of lawyers draw up our agreement. Todd had 49%, silent partner status, no voting power. That night, Savannah posted a quote on her Instagram story. Some people get bitter with age. Sad I smiled. Meanwhile, Liam, who hadn't spoken to me in months, finally reached out. He sent a single text. "Can you pay my car insurance this month?" I stared at that message for a full minute. Then I deleted it. No response. I thought about how many times I'd picked him up from school, bought him sneakers when Jenna and Todd were tight on cash, and defended him when his parents punished him for talking back. But now, I wasn't even worth a phone call. The next step came easily. I contacted the university financial office handling Savannah's account and officially closed the custodial funding. I donated the remainder of the fund, $48,000, to a scholarship program for single mothers going back to nursing school. I even added a note, "In honor of the woman who was told her life no longer mattered." I didn't need a thank you. I just needed peace. 3 days later, Jenna called. She was sobbing. "They're saying we owe this semester's tuition in full. Mom, please. Savannah already picked her classes, and she'll lose everything if we don't." I let her cry. Then I asked calmly, "Does Savannah still think I should be dead?" Silence. Deep, hollow. "You can't do this," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm not doing anything, Jenna. I just stopped doing everything." She hung up, and that's when it hit me. I'd spent years trying to hold everyone together, playing peacekeeper, fixer, silent support, and now that I'd stepped away, everything was crumbling. Not because I caused it, but because they never knew how much of their life was built on my love, my effort, my quiet stability. They thought I was just still alive. They didn't realize I was the pulse of their comfort. Jenna stopped calling. Todd went silent. Savannah blocked me on social media. Liam? He must have taken the hint. No more texts. And yet, in the silence, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. I took long walks, read novels again, took up quilting, something Calvin always teased me about, calling it the sport of patience. I donated to local shelters, met with Craig and a group of older women entrepreneurs at the library every Thursday. We called ourselves the Graceful Exit Club, because that's what I was planning, an exit, not from life, but from theirs. And if they thought the fallout was over, they were wrong. I still had one final move left, something they'd never see coming, something that would make them realize that the woman they pushed aside was the woman who held the map to their future. By now, the Dawson family house had gone quiet. Not literally, they still lived in it, but the warmth, the laughter, the entitlement, all of it had dimmed. They hadn't been paying rent on time, not since the trust took over the deed. I'd sent 2 formal reminders through the management company. No more mom or grandma on the envelope. Just business, just numbers, just contracts. But even with all that crumbling, they still didn't get it. So I decided it was time to change the ending. You see, when Calvin passed, I thought I'd never have a second act. I spent years living half alive, just giving, waiting, surviving. But grief doesn't just hollow you out, it clears space for something new. And now, after what they said, I realized I didn't want to be remembered by the people who only saw me as disposable. I wanted to be remembered by someone who'd never forget me. I met Marisol 5 months ago. She's a 28-year-old single mom working 2 jobs and studying part-time to become a nurse. One day at the pharmacy, I saw her trying to calculate which antibiotics she could afford for her daughter. She had eyes full of exhaustion and pride. She refused to ask for help, but she was drowning. So I stepped in, quietly, anonymously at first. Then we started talking. Coffee after appointments, walks around the lake. She reminded me of myself, fiercely independent, painfully proud but never bitter. She called me Miss Evelyn, and every time she smiled at me, I felt seen. She didn't know about my money or the houses or the accounts, but I knew. She was the one. I set up a new will and a new trust. My lawyer, Susan, handled everything with the precision of a scalpel. The house Jenna lived in? Going to be sold. Proceeds redirected to Marisol's daughter's education fund. The Asheville cabin? already listed with half the earnings set to go toward launching Marisol's community clinic project. She told me once, over tears, "I just want moms like me to have a place that listens." And the rest? My estate, my investments, the quiet empire I'd built behind their backs? All of it, every last cent was going to someone who valued life. Jenna and the others? They were still clinging to the fantasy that I'd eventually cave, that I'd show up for Christmas, that I'd pay the next bill. But I'd already disappeared from their future. 1 week later, I invited Marisol over, told her everything, not just about the support, but about why. She cried, then said something no one in my family had said to me in years. "You matter, Evelyn. You matter so much." It undid me, not because it was dramatic, but because it was true, and I'd almost forgotten. A few days later, I stood across the street from Jenna's house, watching from my car as a realtor's "for sale" sign was posted on the lawn. Todd stormed out, shouting at the poor agent. Jenna followed, screaming on her phone, probably to me. I didn't answer. Savannah wasn't home, probably off posting something cryptic about betrayal. And Liam? He looked out the window and locked eyes with me. He didn't wave. I didn't look away. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about peace, about reclaiming my story, about finally asking myself, who am I when I'm not being used? I drove away, calm, no music, just the hum of the engine and the open road ahead. Back home, Marisol's daughter had drawn a picture. It was me, her, and her mom standing under a big yellow sun. At the top it said, "Our guardian." Not grandma, not mom. Guardian. Maybe that's what I was meant to be all along. The invitation came in a thick, cream-colored envelope. Elegant. Pretentious. It was Savannah's graduation party. Apparently, she was finishing her undergrad early, though the tuition bills had been paid late, and not by me. Maybe Todd had sold one of his watches. Maybe Jenna begged a bank for mercy. I didn't care. What caught my attention wasn't the event. It was the line at the bottom of the card, greater than family only. Family. After everything they'd said, after Savannah told me I was a burden, after Jenna stood by and watched, after Todd turned my help into ownership, they still had the audacity to call me family when it suited them. For a moment I laughed. Then I decided I'd go. But not as they expected. I dressed with care. A soft navy dress, not flashy, not plain. Calvin's locket around my neck. My hair pinned neatly, makeup subtle but dignified. I looked like a woman who'd seen storms and learned how to walk through them dry. When I arrived at the event hall, they were already inside. The venue was small but polished. Crystal chandeliers, ivory tablecloths, a photo wall with Savannah's face printed across it like she was some B-list celebrity. I walked in and silence fell. Forks stopped midair. Savannah blinked, her fake lashes twitching like shocked butterflies. Jenna's jaw tightened. Todd stood beside her, clutching a wine glass too tightly. Liam? He didn't even look up from his phone. I stepped to the podium. I hadn't been invited to speak, but sometimes life gives you a microphone anyway. "Good evening," I said, calm as glass. I wasn't planning to say anything tonight, but then again, no one planned for me to still be here, did they? A few awkward chuckles. Mostly silence. Savannah turned red. I continued. "I want to congratulate Savannah on her graduation. I remember changing your diapers, teaching you to read, sitting through your tantrums and toothaches and tears. I loved you. Every version of you, even the one who looked me in the eye and asked why I was still alive." Jenna gasped. She hadn't expected that line to resurface in public. "I say that," I said, "because words matter, and so do actions. I spent years helping this family, quietly, consistently, and when I stopped, you all showed me who I really was to you." I pulled out a small envelope from my clutch and placed it on the table near Savannah. "No money inside?" I smiled. "Just paperwork. Formal notice that the house is being sold. You have 30 days. Jenna leapt to her feet. "You're doing this now? At her graduation?" "No," I said softly. "I did it weeks ago. You just didn't notice, like always." Todd muttered a curse. Liam looked up for once, eyes wide. I turned to the guests, some extended family, some friends who looked too uncomfortable to speak. "I'm not bitter," I said. "I'm done. And when you're done, you don't scream or throw plates. You simply walk away with what's yours and leave behind what never truly was." I nodded once and walked off stage. No one followed me. Outside, the evening air smelled of summer jasmine. I sat in my car for a moment before starting it. Then came a knock. It was a woman, older, maybe in her 70s. I vaguely remembered her from one of Calvin's cousin's side branches. She said, "I've never seen anything like that. They deserved it." I nodded. She smiled and whispered, "And you looked radiant, like a woman finally breathing." And I was. I drove off without looking back. The party behind me, the past behind me. I wasn't running. I was reclaiming. And in the rearview mirror of my life, I finally saw the truth. They may have thought I was irrelevant, but without me, they were nothing more than borrowed wealth, shallow roots, and hollow noise. And I still had one more move left. 3 weeks after the party, the for sale sign was planted deep into the soil outside Jenna's house. A young couple came to tour it the following weekend. I watched from down the street, sipping tea on a park bench, pretending I wasn't watching, but I was. Todd stood in the doorway while the realtor showed them around, his smile stiff, his posture guarded. He was playing host in a home that was never truly his. Jenna didn't come outside. Savannah had already moved in with a friend, blaming toxic family vibes. Liam barely showed his face. And me? I was packing boxes of my own, not out of grief, not out of need, but out of purpose. I'd sold my own home, not for money, but for a fresh start. I had purchased a small cottage in Franklin, a charming town just 30 minutes outside Nashville. It had a front porch swing, lavender bushes by the steps, and neighbors who smiled like it meant something. Marisol helped me move in. Her daughter, Amelia, carried the lighter boxes and insisted on arranging the pantry, like Grandma would. I didn't correct her. On my first night there, I slept peacefully. No texts buzzing, no guilt dragging its nails down my spine. Just quiet, real quiet. But before I left my old home, I did one last thing. I wrote letters, one to each of them. To Savannah, I said, "You were bright, fierce, and full of promise, but arrogance dimmed your light. You asked why I was still alive. One day, I hope you learn what it means to feel discarded and choose kindness instead." To Liam, I said, "You were my quiet shadow. I loved you most gently. I hope you grow into a man who sees women not as convenience, but as soul. You still have time." To Todd, I said, "You married in for power, but forgot that real strength doesn't come from money. It comes from how you treat those with none. I hope the mirror gets louder." To Jenna, my daughter, I wrote, "You are the greatest heartbreak of my life. I gave you everything, my time, my protection, my softness, and still, you handed me silence when I needed voice. I have nothing left to give you now, and that, Jenna, is your inheritance." I left the letters on the front table of their house on the day they vacated. The keys were turned into the property manager. The door closed behind them. No goodbyes, no second chances. Back in Franklin, I spent my mornings volunteering at the local clinic. Marisol started her nursing classes full-time now, fully funded. Amelia had dance lessons, and sometimes, after school, she'd come over and braid my hair while I read aloud. On the porch, in the golden hour light, we sat one evening and watched the sun dip over the hills. "You happy now, Miss Evelyn?" Amelia asked. I looked at her. A little girl who had more warmth in her pinky finger than most of my relatives had shown in a decade. "I'm finally at peace," I said. She grinned. "That's better than happy." And she was right. I didn't want a big legacy. I didn't need a statue or a plaque or a room named after me. I just wanted my life to mean something to someone. And now it did. They said, Why are you still alive? And the answer was simple: to rebuild my life, to reroute my love, and to take back every piece of myself they thought they could waste. I didn't need to destroy them. I just needed to leave.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.